everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this panel, Alternative Careers for Lawyers, on behalf of Phi Alpha Delta and Law Career Services. We thank you for coming. We've got two panelists who are en route. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
Okay. We have two panelists who are en route. We'll be here momentarily, so we're just going to get started. Tonight, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our panel, which includes a diverse mix of panelists, attorneys who have pursued interesting careers. Some have included the practice of law, others have not and taken a different path. It is our hope that you will find inspiration from their stories, that you will find them compelling, and that you will also think about how it might impact your pursuit of a particular path. So we have 5 panelists. I'll introduce the 3 who are here right now, and the 2 will just sort of jump in. First here to my left, we have Addison Bailey. Addison is the Regional Director for FEMAS Bar Review, a bar exam review preparation course for law students. And I'm just going to give a very brief introduction and then tell you a little bit more about them. Second, we have Valerie Crammell, who practices law currently at Bird & Weil, a law firm with offices in Walnut Creek and Sacramento. And then we have Carlos Torres. Carlos works in-house. He's managing counsel at Salesforce.com. Okay, so I will tell you a little bit more about their paths, and then I'll tell you a little bit about mine, and then I have some specific questions for them to answer, so we'll just go through, and then we'll have time, hopefully, for questions at the end. Please note that there is a reception following the panel discussion immediately following this, and so you can come and network and meet the panelists who would love to meet with you. Okay? So without further ado, we'll begin. First with Addison. Addison received her undergraduate degree from Ferris State in Michigan. Yes, in Michigan, and she graduated from Toledo College of the Law. Prior to law school, she worked with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I'm very interested to hear more about that. After law school, she started working for FEMAS, and she's been the regional director since 2009. In her current role, she oversees all Bay Area law schools. Her job duties involve marketing, advertising, providing substantive bar review lectures, and tutoring students for the bar exam. Okay. Valerie graduated from UC Hastings School of Law. She started out as an investigator for the Marin Public Defender's Office. She also has obtained her license to become a private investigator, and she opened her own business in the East Bay, which she still maintains today, and I cannot wait to hear more about that. In addition to that work, she works at Birding, practicing complex civil litigation. And then finally, we have Carlos Torres. As I mentioned, Carlos is managing counsel at Salesforce.com. He received his undergraduate degree from UCLA in history and his law degree from Stanford Law School. Currently, he concentrates on commercial law, real estate, mergers and acquisitions, and intellectual property matters. Prior to Salesforce, he was senior counsel at Rigel Pharmaceuticals, and he was also an associate in the structured finance group at Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, which is where we actually met. We both were at Orrick at the same time. My name is Eleanor Lumsden. I am a professor here, full-time professor. I teach torts, an introductory torts class, as well as advanced torts and a class in business associations. I received my undergraduate degree from Princeton. I went to NYU Law for law school. After law school, I clerked for a federal magistrate judge in the Southern District of California. I worked at Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe in the Global Finance Group. And then I took my career also had a twist, and I worked at Stanford Law School in development, doing fundraising for almost 4 years before coming to Golden Gate. Okay, so we have a really great panel, really interesting stories. So the first set of questions, or the first question for all the panelists is, and if you can just each take it, is what motivated you to go to law school? Where did you see yourself, or did you have a vision for where you would be after law school when you entered law school? Addison, we'll start with you.
Okay, so
So I entered law school because I was one of those nerdy little kids that used to try all of my cousins during the summer for all sorts of infractions. So I thought it would be fun, and that dream never really died. So I went to law school, and I started in 2006 after I spent some time at the federal prison. I definitely did not see myself in an alternative legal career. I thought for sure I was going to do something else. However, I graduated in 2009 when the market was absolutely horrible in the tank. So I took whatever I could get, and that's when I ended up with Themis, and have very much enjoyed it. It's much more of the academic world versus the practicing world. And I still do a little bit of dabbling on the side with practice so I can stay in touch with things.
Wonderful. So I wanted to welcome our two panelists. Two additional panelists. We have Michelle Isherwood, who is an auditor for Harvey M. Rose Associates, which is a management consultant firm in San Francisco. Michelle was key in helping to put this panel together, so thank you, Michelle, for doing so. She holds a BA from the University of Dayton, an MBA from the Stewart School of Business at the Illinois Institute of Technology. She graduated from Michigan State University College of Law. She's licensed to practice law in Illinois. She has a very interesting career as well. It includes past work experiences at the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of the Inspector General, the Oakland City Auditor, and as an associate at Cadellis and Associates in Illinois. Currently, she volunteers. She's an active volunteer with Phi Alpha Delta and with the American Cancer Society. I also would like to welcome Caitlin. Caitlin, forgive me for Janusz.
Very Polish.
I was going to ask her, but Janusz is beautiful. Caitlin is an international tax consultant for Deloitte. I believe that Caitlin went to the University of Wisconsin at Madison for her undergraduate degree and the University of Wisconsin Law School. She has nearly 3 years of tax and accounting experience. She's handled state, federal, and international tax issues. She serves a variety of clients from small venture capital-backed startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies. She also reviews foreclosure and bankruptcy documents, and she also has experience preparing individual federal and state tax returns. So to bring it to speak, Michelle and Caitlin, the question that I asked everyone was to start with what motivated you to go to law school? Where did you see yourself after graduation? Did you see yourself ending up where you did? So we'll start with what motivated you to go to law school.
I had looked at going to law school when I was much younger, right after college. Then I got married and decided I'd wait. So I didn't actually start law school until I was 33. And then I had taken the LSAT and I was going to go part-time. And my husband got a job in Michigan. So I applied for law school a month before it started. I applied to every law school in Michigan except for the University of Michigan because I really don't like them. And I got in 2 weeks later and I started at Michigan State. I'd actually never been to Michigan State or East Lansing. Really only been to Michigan once. So I started law school. It was something I always wanted to do. I had been working in marketing for almost 10 years, so I wanted to change. And I actually see marketing and the law as a very similar function. You're all trying to convince somebody to buy something, whether it's this package of ho-hos or it's your side of the case. So that's why I went to law school. And it was easier than looking for a job. So at that point, it made sense.
Okay, thank you. Caitlin.
So I actually went to law school very young, unlike Michelle. So I went to law school because I had a lot of advanced placement credits in college, and I finished my undergrad in 2 years and didn't know what else to do with myself. Also, I like to argue with people. So I went to law school not really sure what I wanted to do. I kind of thought that I wanted to be like the courtroom lawyer, like Law and Order style, and I object, but I didn't at all. I hated all of those classes. So then I took a tax class, and I had a really awesome professor, and she basically taught all tax classes at our school. So I went ahead and took individual income tax, partnership tax, international tax, tax policy, and pretty much pigeonholed myself into doing tax work. But I'm really glad that I did, and I think that going to law school taught me that I didn't want to do the whole litigation thing, and now I'm really happy.
Valerie.
I think my problem is that I like phones. So I started off as a bartender in Oakland, and I was a bartender for about 4 years before a friend of mine called me up and said, "Wow, felons love you. You should become an investigator." And I said, okay. And I became an investigator at the public defender's office, where I had my fill of felons every day for about 3 to 4 years. And what I noticed over that time is that I had done almost every case you can imagine. Marin Falls, well, St. Quentin with death row falls under the jurisdiction of Marin. So I had been in and out of prison, death row, done the gamut of cases. And I realized that there was only so far I could take it as an investigator. And so I went to law school thinking that when I got out, I'd come back and be a defense investigator. I now do civil litigation of all and other things. And had I known that to begin with, I probably never would have gone to law school. But it actually turned out to be really good, and the same sort of skills are kind of interchangeable. So it's felons of a different sort.
Everybody, first I'd like to note that Professor Lumsden did not say another interesting career path when she talked about mine, but I think I have the most normal career path of everybody here. Everybody has a really interesting path that they've taken. When I was in college, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was interested in lots of political issues and had strong opinions about social justice, and I went to law school with the idea that I'd be working in that capacity in some way, whether it was for a nonprofit or for a government organization or something along those lines. I tried that type of work during law school, and I actually didn't like it a whole lot for a variety of reasons. That's kind of a longer conversation. I ended up in the corporate route at a law firm right after law school, and that was really good training. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, but it wasn't the right thing for me long term. I've been in-house now for about 5 years, doing a variety of things, and I've really come to enjoy what I'm doing now because it touches on a variety of things that are really important to me as a person and in a career, and that is providing counsel, helping people solve problems, and having that kind of human connection that I think I missed, at least for myself, when I was at law firm for a number of years. So that's kind of how I ended up in the in-house work.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So for the panelists, tomorrow, October 31st is the first day that 1Ls, first-year students, can go to Law Career Services. There's a Law Career Services open house where they, for the first time, are allowed to talk to Law Career Services about career opportunities. And so, and I remember from law school that a lot of times it was the hard thing was finding out about other opportunities. And so some of you alluded to mentors or teachers who are really interested in tax, and that's how you ended up. But I'd like to get more specific, if you don't mind, about how specifically, if you had to rank the influences, whether it was a law professor who told you about your particular opportunity, or how did you get to where you are? Specifically, when you were in law school, what were the things that led you to where you ended up?
Well, I don't know how many of you were in here earlier and heard me say that my law school got an F for their employment transparency numbers. My career services was astonishingly horrible. Golden Gate, however, did very well, so you guys have something to look forward to that I didn't. My career services sucked. I did not use them in law school or after law school. I tried a couple times to no avail. They did not help me whatsoever. I found much more help from the attorneys that I had interned with, that I had met through different other attorneys that gave me a lot more advice on what to look for in terms of a career, what would fit my skill set. A couple of my professors were also very helpful in really making me love certain areas, like family law and mental health law. I did a lot of juvenile detention and mental health law all the way through law school. So that was something that I was very interested and kind of wanted to pursue. I guess I'm not going to be a whole lot of help because I found my job on my own. Nobody really helped me find it.
I worked with some career services, some at Michigan State. They were, at least at that time, they were very focused on big law. Big law, that's where you're going. If you wanted to go there, they give you a whole list of firms. Sometimes some medium firms, and if you want to stay in Michigan. Those were two things I didn't want to do. I did find them helpful getting my resume together and just kind of knocking things around. I'm going to give a big plug for Phi Alpha Delta right now. I can't help myself. I actually found Phi Alpha Delta and the alumni to be very helpful. That is how I found not one, but my first two jobs after law school. Talking to alumni members, and one of them happened to have a wife who worked for DOJ. And she happened to work in the Office of Inspector General as an auditor. So that kind of led me there. And I had worked at a firm for almost a year before that, and that was Phi Alpha Delta too. But really, the alumni connection there, and finding an alumni who does all, maybe especially when I didn't want to get in the firm anymore, there were plenty of alumni who had done the firm route and who went somewhere else, some other way. So it was easy to pick up the phone or send them an email and talk to them about that kind of career path and get some, I think, strong advice.
Yeah, so I, like I said, had a professor who was awesome. She had great PowerPoints and was funny and really made the subject matter of tax interesting. And then once I was hooked, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And she sort of hooked me up with my summer internship that I did for the summer full-time and then also part-time while I was taking classes with the Wisconsin Department of Revenue. And so I was interning under chief counsel there working on large tax litigation. So that gave me this, what I needed on my resume to be able to say, oh, I've had some dealings with these tax issues and I could do this as a job, and it was a good booster for me on my resume. But I mean, I didn't get my job through Phi Alpha Delta, but similarly, I did get it through networking. I mean, I went to a book club in my condo complex and then started running with a girl there, and her husband worked at Deloitte, and then he worked with some guy who knew the recruiter at tax. Like, it was a big convoluted thing, but it did have to do with who I knew and, putting myself out there and talking to people. And basically what they said to me is, culturally you're a good fit for the firm. Like, you like to talk, you're outgoing, you would fit with what we want to do. And, oh yeah, you have this tax experience, perfect. So we'll pull you in there. So I can't stress enough, Phi Alpha Delta is a great way to start doing that networking and meeting people and building relationships that will help you out later. But certainly other things too, other student organizations that you can be involved in, or bar associations or whatever, I think is the way to go.
Networking really is the way to do it, and you'd be surprised how many connections you make in your law school that will then play themselves out after you graduate and you see kind of where everyone else has gone. It's really important to maintain those connections as much as possible, and then also while you are here, maintaining and or building the connections that you can with people who are already practicing in various fields. What I've noticed is that when I was in law school, I had a very particular avenue I thought I was going to go to, but at the same time, I kept myself very, very open to any other sort of experience or opportunity that came available. I never thought I wanted to do civil litigation, but when I got called up by a civil litigation firm, I took it. And it's because of all the various experiences that I had, all the various things that I had done, that I was able to keep getting different jobs in different places, and then the networking would just kind of help go along with that. So somebody could call up and say, I have a job in this, would you be interested? Yeah, I have experience in that, I know I like that, I know I can do that. I can move in that direction, I cannot move in that direction, but it opened up a whole lot more doors to me than I would have ever had I just said, you know what, I'm only going to be a public defender, I'm only going to do defense law, I'm only going to do it in the area. A lot of people who I know who graduated in 09 with me who have that mentality do not have law jobs. They have And there are certain jobs which is wonderful, and they, for the most part, are happy, but not all of them are, and not all of them feel fulfilled. So you can get to where you want to go by doing an end run around it if you keep yourself open and you keep it that way.
That's pretty good. I also want to echo what everybody said, and I want to also emphasize the importance of relationships. That's how I got my jobs, and I've been talking a little bit about that, and also about keeping an open mind about kind of where the path takes you. I wasn't thinking that I was going to end up at a law firm, but for a variety of reasons, I ended up at a big law firm practicing corporate law. And part of the reason was because I had two friends who were going to go to do summer there. I'd actually done summer at this law firm, and they convinced me to apply and all that kind of stuff. So it really worked out well. And the job that I have now is also partly a result of the fact that I used senior attorney when I applied, and that was definitely very, very helpful as well. Even now that I'm in-house, and when we, for example, need somebody to come in or to help out because something might be needed for a leave of some sort, it's always the people who work there that are asked first if they know anybody who can come in and fill in, for example. We get sometimes hundreds of resumes, really amazing resumes for open positions, and it's always about, do you know anybody instead? And they'll rather bring that person in for an interview. And also just along the lines of relationships, now that I've been practicing for over 11 years, it's a very small valley, they kind of say, it's a small community of lawyers, and almost every resume that comes in, I'll be connected to that person by, 1 degree of separation or something like that. And so we begin to kind of really, build that social network. That's really important when we move forward.
Wonderful, thanks. I forgot to add my own experience, which is just that I had two transitions as well from legal practice. I was at my law firm to fundraising, and then from fundraising development to teaching. And I'd like to echo what everyone else has said here, that relationships were very important in both of those transitions. When I was at Oric, I loved the place or the people, but I was sleeping on my floor and I was just tired of the hours. And I had been discussing, it came from sort of the public interest sector, nonprofit world. And so I had been discussing with a friend almost from the moment she arrived at Oric about going back into that world. And so I talked to her about what are the kinds of skills that are important in the nonprofit world. And we talked about fundraising and development. And I talked to my judge and I said, well, what do you think? And she said, yes. She said, fundraising is an important skill. A lot of lawyers are afraid of money. They're afraid of talking about money. They don't know how to ask for money. If you were to get a job as a fundraiser, and you didn't spend too much time doing it, you could still stay within the law and add this valuable skill. And so when I took a leave of absence from the firm, I was just very tired of sleeping on the floor, and I took a leave of absence and I was gone for a couple of months, and this friend called me, during my leave of absence, I think around the point when I had started not changing and started watching Jerry Springer and I was bored. And she called me and she said, what are you doing? I know you're watching Jerry Springer. You need to come and come work down here at Stanford. And so that was it. Like that she opened the door to the interview. She was a junior associate. She started 2 years after me. She had been miserable at Oric. She left very shortly after arriving. It was that simple with a phone call. Similarly with my transition from Stanford to Golden Gate, one of the things I wanted to emphasize is how important it is just to tell everybody about what you're thinking, what you're hoping, and I mean everybody, not just people on a panel, not just your professors, everyone that comes across your path. You should have a story for what your vision is, and the vision can change moment to moment, it can change, but you should have one. And so when I was at Stanford, very early on, even when I was only in my first year at Stanford, I had been thinking about teaching. I'd been talking about teaching. I'd been talking about writing and loving research. And I told everybody that I knew, mom, uncles, people at work. And it so happened that a couple of years into Stanford, a friend of mine who is a colleague now called me and said, you have to quit your job, but if you want to come, there's a 1 semester opportunity. Okay, there's a 1 semester opportunity to come and teach at Golden Gate. are you in or are you out? And I started to say, well, it sounds really great, but I've got this really stable job. She said, are you in or are you out? Right, so that's going to segue to my next question for the panelists, which is about risk. How do you feel about risk? If you had to sort of rate yourself on the risk scale, some people have said that it's important to be able to take risks or to learn to take risks. It sounds like some of your careers are non-traditional, so you had to be able to be open to that. If you had to sort of personally assess your own risk sort of factors or scale, where would you be?
First, I want to preface this with take the risk. You will not get anywhere in your career without taking a risk. You'll end up in some stable job that you'll hate for years and years and years, and you'll be trapped in it. Especially with the market now, you're not really going to find a whole lot of stuff that is going to be stable from the beginning. You're going to have to take the risks of volunteering for a couple months and keeping your fingers crossed that they like your work enough to ask you to stay on after, once they get the budget to hire you on. If it's something is below what you think you're worth, you're probably going to have to just eat your ego and take it, because you need to start somewhere. And risk is a big thing about, especially in the beginning, of being able to start and get that experience and start building your network. Later on, if you feel very comfortable and very strongly about where you're at and what path you want to take, you can be a little bit more choosy about what you want to take your risks on. But early on in your career, I would say risk needs to be one of your top points when you're putting out your applications, when you're talking to people. Don't put yourself into a corner where you can only stay here, you can only do a certain type of law, or you will end up, like Val said, jobless in a couple years or in something that you absolutely hate.
I agree with Addison. My risk factor is pretty high. It does help that I have a dual income with my husband, so that gives me a little bit of comfort. But I think risk also includes showing up at a meeting by yourself to some alumni group or bar association. Some people, even in law school, are afraid of that. I can't go to that, I don't know anybody. But take that risk. I showed up at a Alpha Delta alumni meeting when I moved back to Chicago. I didn't know anybody. It was at a firm. I can't. I almost I was laying on the couch watching Montel. I'm not the only one. I'd already gotten through Maury. So I had my husband call and said, what are you doing? I'm like, ironing. Dishes. And so I got up, changed, and went, and I was sitting there, and they said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm knitting. And I did. I went to a knitting shop and started knitting with all these ladies sitting there, and I would tell them, just like your professor said, everything I wanted to do. I want to do this, I want to do that. And then I went to that thing, and they said, well, do you have a job yet? I said, no. They said, do you want one? I'd like one. And I sent in, they kept calling me, send me your resume. I was on the way home. I said, it takes me an hour to get home. I promise I'll send it. And I did. That was a Tuesday. I interviewed Thursday. I got the job Friday, and I started Monday. And I didn't know one person there. The only thing we had in common was the law journey. But so take that risk. And also there's the career risk. I didn't know if I wanted to be an auditor. It didn't sound very fun. There's two things people really don't like, and that's attorneys and auditors. Not both. But it seemed like a good skill fit for me, and I really didn't want to practice anymore. I didn't want to practice law anymore. I represented banks in mortgage foreclosure, if that gives you an idea. So it was just a risk, and I really liked it. I've been doing it now 5 years, and I can't even think about looking back. I really enjoyed it. So take the risk, it's worth it.
I agree. I, as you heard, went to school in Wisconsin for my undergrad and my law degree, and I graduated in December of 2008, 2 months after the recession, really bottomed. And so a lot of places I applied with Deloitte to do international tax, which is what I do now, and they wrote back and said, oh yeah, your awesome resume looks good, but we're just not hiring. And so I looked at a map and I said, where would I like to live? Gee, the Bay Area sounds cool. And I went to Craigslist and started applying for legal assistant, crappy, whatever, paperwork jobs. I was like, well, I'll take the California bar eventually and then, you know, get a law job, whatever. And I ended up working, like, the first job I got here, I spent 9 months as a blogger at a personal injury firm in Orinda. Like, I tweeted for this law firm, I managed their Facebook presence, I did search engine optimization. My title, well, when I started, it was Legal Assistant 2.0. And then they called me Director of Client Outreach, which, like, I mean, I blogged, I don't know, whatever. Client Outreach. So, I mean, I took a total risk coming here. The job paid, like, nothing, but I got to live in a new and cool area, and then I got to meet people, and which is how I got in the job I'm in. And then while at Deloitte, the bit about reviewing foreclosure stuff, Deloitte has JP Chase as one of our clients, and we're doing the government mandated review of their foreclosure. So actually, I reviewed the stuff that her law firm did when they represented that bank. Found some of her old attorney coworkers on there. And that was a total risk too. They were like, well, you know, it might hurt your career a little bit, set you back, because I went to New York for 6 months to work on this project. And then, well, you're not doing tax, so it's kind of risky. It might delay your promotion, it might not be the best, but I went to New York, I had a great time, I met a bunch of people, I learned a bunch about bankruptcy and foreclosure law that I didn't know because I hadn't taken any of those courses in law school, and now I feel like I have yet another skill set, you know, and I was able to manage a team of people when I was out there. And that's something that's on my resume now, and recruiters contact me and they say, oh, do you have management experience? And even though I hadn't really had it in the tax part of my career, I was like, oh yeah, not only that, but I went to this place and I picked up new law and I learned it really fast. And then I taught it to this whole other team of people so they could review these foreclosures. So, I mean, whenever an opportunity that's even remotely interesting comes your way, really seriously think about taking the risk and jumping in, because you never know what you'll end up finding, and it may be an even better fit than what you thought you wanted to do.
I think that risks have to be calculated, and I think that in some ways I'm a little lucky because I don't have kids and a spouse and a mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. I don't even know cold fish. And so I have been able to take a lot of risks, and I've taken actually very extreme risks. I started businesses in Saipan. I didn't even know where Saipan was when I hopped on that airplane. I know where it is now. I've done a lot of stuff like that I would not have been able to do, or would not have calculated in correctly had I had a lot of responsibilities. And so what I hear from a lot of people who end up not taking a lot of risks is that they see the responsibilities that they have in their life as something that is limiting. And I think that what I've learned from my sister who has 2 kids, that you can make value and you can take risks that are calculated in such a way that you can kind of get where you need to go without betting the farm. And so when, like these ladies have said, when something does open up that it seems like it could be interesting, but that little bell goes off with this maybe too risky for your situation, there's always ways to negotiate something out. That nothing is ever black and white. There's always a way to negotiate it. If you get an opportunity to go to New York, but you know, don't think that you can pay your rent if you do, there's ways that you can make value, there's ways you can make it work. And so you always have to keep that in mind. And that's part of what Michelle was saying. Ask for it. Take that risk. Be that person who's going to take that one extra step and ask for what you need and see if you can make that happen for you.
Great. I think, as I mentioned, I think my career has been a lot more like legal linear compared to the rest of the panelists. But I also agree that taking chances and a leap of faith when these opportunities arise is very important. Just one example of how I took some chances is I was in a standard big law firm job. I was there for a few years, and I reached a point where I didn't like it. I wasn't watching Montel back yet, but I was definitely ready to get out. And I actually just quit my job, and I also was very lucky. You know, you were saying I didn't have a lot of other responsibilities at the time where I could afford to do that. I kind of just quit my job. I traveled around the world for a while, and I kind of came back and was sleeping on couches and things of that sort until I kind of began to explore different things that I wanted to do with myself. And that was, you know, at least for the people that I used to work with, it was insanity. The partners that I used to work with, they thought that I had, you know, there was maybe something wrong with me mentally almost. I mean, everybody kind of suggested that. But and now I kind of use it ludicrous, but that was a really important time for me because because it gave me a chance to really connect with myself and my values and what I really wanted, and it gave me the confidence to move forward with my life in a way that I didn't have before. So I think those types of opportunities are things that we definitely need to take.
Thank you. I wanted to pick up on something Carlos was saying. So I think what everyone is saying is that it's important to take risks. My next question is really about mentors, right? Do you have any mentors? How did you find your mentor? I think if you have one, or who is your sounding board if you have one? And let me just preface it with saying, Carlos was saying earlier about just leaving or if you just quit. And I had one of those moments, right, where it was sort of it was just this moment where I said, I cannot be here anymore. I cannot be here. And I walked into the partner in charge of the office, of the San Francisco office. I walked into his office. He was on the phone with a client. He was like, can we talk later? And I said, no, we need to talk now. I was marching in there to quit. I'd been up for over 24 hours. The thing that I was working on, the client called so that they didn't need it. And I was just so sort of angry and upset and tired and hungry. And I walked into his office like, I'm going to burn every bridge I have on my way out of this place. And so I told him, he put the call on mute, so they were still talking. And I said to him, I cannot be here anymore. This is incompatible with my life goals. I had this speech, it was just crazy. And I remember at the time, I don't know how else to describe it. It was like Yoda, right? I'd say, I must leave, and he'd say, stay, you must, right? He just would keep talking out of it. And this is just to preface the whole conversation about mentors. He was my assigned mentor in the firm. I never saw him, but he was my assigned mentor. And let me tell you, if I had prepared that speech and given that speech to anyone else in the firm, they would have said, don't let the door hit you on your way out, okay? He was a mentor, he was looking out for me. So instead of that message, he said to me, you just need sleep. Why don't you take some time off? I think that you should take 4 months of time off. And you know, I was angry when I walked in there. I was like, oh, okay, 4 months of time off sounds kind of nice. And he's like, we can pay you 20% of your salary if you work with one client that you've been working with 1 day a week. Starting to sound good. And so that's how I had the 4 months off to watch Jerry Springer and for someone else to call me so that I could get my next job. Okay, so my transitioning to you, do you have any mentors? Who are the people in your life that have sort of been your sounding boards, who you've relied on for advice, who have helped you along the way? And for the students, for others in the audience, how would you suggest that they go about finding those friends?
One mentor that was really, really key early on, and I'll particularly my last year at law school, was actually the attorney I was interning for at the Ohio Attorney General's office. And she was definitely my sounding board of, do you think it's crazy to just pack my car up and leave the day after I graduate and go to California with no job, turn down the job that I got from the Ohio Attorney General's office because I didn't want to live in Columbus, Ohio. For any of you that have been there, you can understand. And she is the one that really encouraged me to, again, take that risk and stay in contact with her. She knew a few people out here, probably not enough, and she was very honest with me about that fact. But told me that you only live once. If you really want to be in California, go. You've got a set amount of money, because I had my bar loan at the time, and when that runs out, if I don't have a job, then I can always come back and sleep on my mom and dad's couch. So that was one mentor that to this day I still contact every couple of months. She got married a couple years ago. We stay in contact. I still get some offers every once in a while to go back to Ohio. I do not want to go, so I don't take them. Once I moved out here, I really wanted to do family law, so I got my current family law mentor actually from the San Francisco Bar Association. I think it's really key for you guys if you are interested in something, even in law school or once you get out, volunteer and do your pro bono time. You can find a lot of people that are really interested in helping you out, especially a young attorney. They want to see you succeed. Because they're going to be leaving eventually, and they want to make sure that the attorneys coming up aren't going to give them a bad name. So I really encourage you to find mentors that way. On a completely separate note, Val has actually been one of my really key sounding boards and mentors. We have pretty different paths, but we are definitely a sounding board for each other of, I really want to just go off on my boss right now, and I'll call Val first. So I can get all of the angry things out of my brain before I actually call up a boss and do something really awful and stick my foot in my mouth. So again, a mentor doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's got this great, awesome career that you want. It can be a friend that is on the same level as you, and have them be your sounding board, because they're going to have different experiences than you are, even if you're at the same place in life as a 2L or a 3L. Use them before you kind of jump off and do something that may be detrimental to you.
I agree with that. And, my husband is usually my sounding board for things like that. I have a quick temper and tend to be really loud, and he's very quiet and calm. So usually I try to remember to talk to him before I lose it. Also, as far as career, again, Delta, the first attorney I met at the Alumni Association, or the alumni group that helped me get my job at the law firm. I still talk to him. I sound things off. A couple of the other attorneys I've met through there and alumni members, I call them when I think I'm going to make a decision, or if I'm going to move somewhere, just to get their input on it. Most of them have a lot more legal experience than me, or it helps kind of give me some career direction. Just mostly alumni. I also call Addison, Caitlin, or Val if I also think I'm going to lose it. So, and they, and even though we're all kind of in different spots, and it helps just to get a different perspective.
Yeah, I think the same is true, definitely. People who are at your own level or peers are great for like getting your temper out. But then in terms of kind of a mentor for where you want to go with your career, what you want to do, I also have an assigned mentor at work. The first one I had really didn't work out. He was like, you just need to get your billable hours. You don't really need goals. I was like, no. I do need goals. So I switched my assigned mentor to a woman who kind of looks like what I want my life to look like. She's really well respected at work. She's been successful. She's got a couple of kids, so she has some balance. She works from home on every Friday, but yet somehow is like on partner track. Like, she's got it all figured out. And I said, can this person be my mentor? Because I want to know how she did that. And that's been great, but sometimes she's busy, or sometimes I need another opinion, or sometimes I'm working on her client and I don't know what to do and I don't want to talk to her about it. So I've kind of developed a bunch of other mentors in my office who know the office culture, who know what's going on in my career, and I can talk to them as well for feedback. And then I think the other point that these ladies have made is having someone outside of what you want to do, or what is, people in your office or your area of expertise is always good, because you may get some ideas about other paths you can take, other things you can do. And then, if there's something that's in the back of your mind, something you've always wanted to do, maybe you'll meet some person who can help you get there, who's not in your field that you're in right now or whatever. So whoever is around you feel close to, I think alumni are a great resource. Significant others are also good for the temper or issues like that. But keep your mentors kind of open, I guess. You can have more than one. People are like, oh, my mentor was so-and-so. I have like 20 people that I would say are my mentors, and that's totally okay, and they all bring different value to my career and my life.
I'm going to agree with what Greg said, essentially. I think that definitely you want to have yourself surrounded by people who've known you before law school, through law school, perhaps your whole life, and know you, love you, see where you're going, see what you want to do, just in case you happen to get lost. Sometimes that does happen in the practice of law, you get lost. And you're going to want somebody who, as you talk to them, can kind of pull you back in and pull you back to the core. For as simple as that sounds, you'll understand when you're there. Friends, like these ladies say, family, spouses, anybody who can play that role is very key. In terms of the law, I've never had a mentor who's been assigned to me. I have found that a lot of attorneys, when they are practicing, especially the kind of law that I do, civil, they don't have a lot of time to mentor. They have very little interest in mentoring. But what I've noticed is that if I find somebody who, like Kaylin said, I appreciate what they've done with their life and I appreciate the way they approach the law, or I appreciate something about the way they practice, I will just kind of stand a little bit closer, and just watch them work, read their motions when they're done, watch them in oral argument. I will take the time, not bill for it, and go and learn from them in an informal way, when they don't even know that they're really teaching me, but I'm learning what I need to learn. I've also found that your support staff, when you do become an attorney, is probably going to be your biggest lifesaver, and they should be. My past paralegals and my current paralegal, they really do mentor me in some way. They make sure that I don't send off something that's going to get me in trouble. They make sure that I don't sound stupid in my letters. They make sure that if I took a long lunch, that they're covering for me if the client calls. I mean, all these different things, and they all should, I know how to paginate properly. I know how to file a motion properly. I know when deadlines are due. I know all these little things about practicing law that you never learn in law school, that you never learn here in the classroom. You only learn by being a paralegal or being a legal secretary. You don't even learn as being an attorney. These people are so important, they're so overlooked, and they're not appreciated. And so these, most of them are ladies, are people who I have really, those relationships I've really tried to cultivate, or people who I really respect and listen to. And if they tell me that I'm doing something wrong, or I should do something differently, I listen, because they've been there. So that's something that I think a lot of attorneys don't recognize. Maybe they should.
Yeah, I haven't had any sort of a formal mentor relationship. I think that has been very fruitful. But what I have done is look at people that represent what I value. I think that's what everybody has been saying to some degree. At work, that could be my boss, it could be my friend's boss, it could be a coworker, and that has been really helpful in furthering my career. And outside of work, I've looked for similar values in people. So kind of who do I have, who I respect, who I see myself wanting to become, how do I learn from this person. So it's not just in the work context, but it's been in lots of different contexts as well. I'm trying to associate myself with people I respect.
I would like to just add a final plug for reaching out to your professors as well. Right here, let me just say from personal experience, I had one professor in law school who I spent all of my time with. I did research with him, I worked under him, and that was wonderful, wonderful experience. But I really should have networked or reached out to some of my other professors as well. When I went on the teaching market, the teaching job market, I had to get recommendations from professors, and this is now more than 15 years out of law school, and that's awkward, an awkward conversation. I actually had a conversation with a professor where I had to remind him who I was, right? So that's maybe not so unusual, but you have people who are here. I'm willing to serve as a mentor. Please reach out. I know that you're focused on your studies, but we're here for a reason, and those relationships can go far. We're almost at the end of time. I really wanted to end, but I wanted to get one more question in for all the panelists, if you don't mind. The question is, maybe if you don't mind describing very briefly, succinctly, what's a typical day like for you? I mean really quickly, I know this is going to be a joke, but what's a typical day like? How do you balance time for your professional responsibilities and your personal activities? And then do you have any hobbies that you have that keep you sane?
Yeah, so because I'm in bar review world, it's very academic. So half of the year I am probably at one of the local schools, meeting with academic success, public interest, my campus reps that I hired, the deans, sitting at a lovely table with a bunch of free candy for you to come take from me. Sorry. So that is most of my day, half of the year. And then the other half of the year, I'm actually doing substantive law, tutoring for the bar exam. So I have a lot more time during the summer, and any break in school calendars is a break for me. So I pretty much work at home, which it makes it very easy to balance my work and personal life. Even during the school year, I kind of set my own schedule. I decide when I want to go to different schools. I am my boss up here. Nobody really looks in on me unless I do something really awful, like don't respond to anything for 3-4 days. So it's very easy for me. If I want to do something during the day, I can do work later in the evening. I don't know about their careers, but for me, I can pretty much set my schedule to whatever I want and whatever is going on in my life.
I have a fairly typical office job. I mean, I go in the morning. I do make time now to work out. That's a commitment I made to myself and for my friends who make me work out with them. So, and like I said, yesterday was my 18th wedding anniversary. So I want to make time for my family, and I've lucked out that I found a firm. We do management audits of government agencies. I know, don't all rush to talk to me. It's exciting. But I found a firm that understands life balance and understands that sometimes I have to work hard and I'm there 12 hours, and other times I'm there 8. I can also work at home, and that helps. I go in the office and I work at home. So I think it's important to have balance if you can. Try to spend time with your family and friends. Stay fit. It's a lot harder to get back into shape than it is to stay in shape, especially once you're 40.
So yeah, my hobby is working out with her. But my job is also pretty similar to Michelle's in that I have a lot of flexibility. Deloitte is consistently ranked as being a good place for like working mothers, not that I have children, but working mothers or families. And about half of my year is busy season, which is corporate tax return compliance season. Everything is due September 15th, and in those last couple of weeks, I'm billing 70 or 80 hours a week, and I put in one 17-hour day this year. Like, it goes crazy sometimes. But right now, I was able to leave at 4 I work in the San Jose office to come here and be on this panel. I'm getting my hair cut at 1:30 on Friday. Like, it's pretty chill because we finished returns. And so now it's kind of our consulting season, and we're doing tax planning for multinational corporations, but it's a little more flexible. So there's kind of the sacrifice of the busy season when you're working on Saturdays and Sundays and nights. But that's kind of made up for by the downtime that happens at other points in the year. I got an email while I was on the way here that I need to do some work tonight, but it's not a big, I mean, it's pretty flexible. I can kind of make my own schedule. Had I not left at 4, I probably would have done that work in the office. But again, people have kids, they come in at 10 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's fine as long as they're getting their work done. So I go for coffee a lot while I'm at work. In my typical day, I like to go out for lunch. It's pretty flexible. There are still billing requirements. I think I have to bill 1,600 hours this year. It's far less than at a large law firm. Sometimes you end up billing more. Last year I billed 2,100 hours. I mean, it's kind of all over the map, but in general, I would say my career is more flexible than a large law firm. The pay is less than a large law firm, but I think it's more than made up for with a little bit of work-life balance.
I do complex civil litigation. I have low hours. I work a lot. I love it. I have a good firm. They take really good care of their employees, which is very abnormal for a mid-sized civil litigation firm. But yeah, the typical day is court appearances, motions, calls to client, lots of letters, lots of yelling at people, you know, the normal things attorneys do. I also maintain a PI business. I do that. That has flexibility, which is why I can still maintain it. With the exception of doing some kinds of surveillance, I can do that weekends and nights. There's not a lot of time pressure unless I'm subpoenaed to court or I have to do something that is daytime mandatory, like a prison investigation or something like that, where you always say, okay, we're there at night. So for the most part, I have a full daytime job, and I supplement that with some moonlighting simply because I enjoy doing investigative work, and it keeps me thoroughly entertained. But yeah, a typical day is just what you'd expect it to be for an attorney or a litigator. You know, I have to live with clients.
now that I'm in-house, I spend a lot less time doing formal legal work and a lot more time solving problems. So being in-house means that you gotta keep the business moving while mitigating the risk. I also manage a small team of attorneys, and so I spend a lot of my time at meetings and doing my managerial duties, all sorts of different things. So it's a pretty busy, hectic day. It's a growing company that involves a lot of meetings and phone calls and negotiations and just solving problems every 15 or 20 minutes that kind of pop up. In terms of kind of balancing that out, I think Professor Lumsden knows that I like international travel, so I take off whenever I can. And I also brew my own beer and I drink it.
That's wonderful. And on that note, so we don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but we have the reception. So I would encourage, we're talking about networking, right? So if you're shy, come up to me, I'll introduce you, I'll play that middle person. But I just wanted to thank the